Hey, what's up everybody? It's Lids, and we're back for some more Gwent, and today we're playing the new dual casting seasonal event, which is an alternate game mode in which the first special card that we play on our turn, we play twice. That means powerful special cards and units that give us special cards are suddenly twice as powerful. So today we're focusing on one of the best special decks there is. Let's go give it a look. So today we'll be playing an updated version of our previous Northern Realms Mages deck. This time we're using Inspired Zeal, and the entire deck is built around this Cintrian Spellweaver card because it gains charges and therefore gains damage whenever we play either a spell card or a mage card. Not only do we play twice as many spells as usual in this event, we have some spells that can play mages, which means we can get ridiculous amounts of charges on these Spellweavers, making them crazy powerful, and if we load up on as many Spellweavers on the board as possible, then our damage is practically unmatched. So last time we went all in on the Spellweavers, finding every single way to create as many Spellweavers as possible. This time, there are a few new ways we can add in additional Spellweavers, but we also have some newly reworked cards that might be particularly relevant in this event that may not directly relate to the Spellweavers, but are still really strong and worth considering for that reason. So we have Chapter of Wizards, which will give us Runeword, which we will play twice because it's a special card, and then that can give us a random Northern Realms Mage card. Ideally here we're looking for another Spellweaver, and if we can get two Spellweavers from that, that's amazing. We have Triss Telekinesis, who will play a bronze special card from either player's starting deck. We're looking for Runeword, which is also in our starting deck for, again, more Spellweavers. And, like I said, we have a couple of Runewords in our deck directly as well. Then, once we have a Spellweaver on the board, we can use reinforcements to create two additional copies of a Spellweaver, because we'll play this twice too. And once we have a Spellweaver on the board, we can also use Megascope to create an additional copy of it as well. Then we have Gerhart, and if he stays on the board long enough to get his order ability up to 6 power, that means that he can play another Runeword, and again, gives us not only more spells, but more mages, and potentially more mages than our Spellweavers. Then we have the Ard Student, who will gain damage the longer he remains on the board, and similarly, the Aretuza Student, who will gain boosting of increasing power depending on how long she's been on the board, both of whom will set up the Alumni. The more powerful the Ard Students and Aretuza Students become, the more powerful Alumni is. And while those units are charging up their power, Aretuza Adept will get boosted up as well. Then once we've used the order ability of one of those patience units, or if we say get Runeword to give us a mage that we don't really care about, we can use Practice Makes Perfect to swap out that mage and get a different one from our deck and give it a boost in the process. Then at the beginning of round 2 or round 3, play Princess Pavetta to get all of the Spellweavers that you created in round 1 from your graveyard back into your deck. Once all of your Spellweavers are back into your deck, in round 2/3 you can use the echoed copies of both Amphibious Assault and Oneiromancy, because since you played them twice in round 1, that means you're getting 2 copies of each of them in your hand in round 2/3, so 4 copies of them in total, each of which once again get played twice, means you can play 8 Spellweavers from your deck in round 3, which is just ridiculously strong. And the new addition that doesn't necessarily relate directly to the Spellweavers is the Hen Gaidth Sword, because when you play this, if you get the death blow to trigger with your 5 damage, you will banish your opponent's unit, and when you play the echoed copy of Hen Gaidth in a future round, not only will you still get the 5 damage, you will also play a copy of whatever unit you destroyed with the first round of Hen Gaidth Sword. And because, like any other special card, we can play this twice in one turn, that means we can destroy 2 of our opponent's cards in one turn, and then in round 2 or round 3, when we get the echoed copy of this card, we can then play our own copy of those cards, in addition to getting the damage from the echoed Hen Gaidth Sword directly. So it's a nifty little addition that, if you happen to get the death blow on one of your opponent's strongest units, could be a really nice bonus. Just make sure that you play the first copy of this in round 1, or maybe round 2, so that you still have the echoed copy you're getting in round 3, in which you have the chance to play that unit that you destroyed in round 1 or round 2. Otherwise, if you wait to play this until round 3, you're never going to get the echoed copy, which is where you get the real value from playing the unit that you had destroyed. So there's a look at the deck, and like I said, it is all about playing a ton of the Cintrian Spellweaver cards so that we get ridiculous damage every time we play either a spell card or a mage card. So let's go see it in action. Alright, so going up against Scoia'tael here, and we'll go first. Okay, so we want to have our tutors, and we want to have ways to create Spellweavers, so the key things that we're looking for here. We can create Spellweavers using Chapter Wizards, so that's a good starting point. Maybe with Triss, assuming we can get Runeword. We'd like to have Runeword in hand if possible. And then we can tutor out the original Spellweavers from our deck using Oneiro. We'd like not to have units in hand. We'd like to be tutoring those units, including, most importantly, those Spellweavers, so really trying to get rid of these guys and say, get something like Amphibious Assault or a Runeword. Practice Makes Perfect is a not great, but I think what we're probably looking for here, at least we have reinforcements, does give us additional Spellweavers, or at least once we have one on the board, we can. Hen Gaidth Sword, also good card for round 1 in particular. If our opponent has a strong unit, we can destroy it and create a copy of it when we play the echoed copy of Hen Gaidth in round 2 or round 3. But I think we need to start off, first and foremost, with getting some of those Spellweavers out here. And so what we want to do is ideally start doing that with things that aren't as spell or mage intensive, because that way we do that stuff later on, we get more charges when we have all the Spellweavers on the board. That being said, basically everything is going to give us Spellweaver procs. We would ideally get Spellweaver here with Runeword, but in the absence of that, we'll look for, setup for Alumni. And a complete lack of Spellweavers is unfortunate. We do, of course, still have other ways we can hopefully get another Runeword from Triss. We can definitely Oneiro in to get Spellweavers that way. I was hoping to get some Spellweavers through this, but we might want the sure thing now. Going this route here. Especially because if we do this... That is the wrong card. No, hold on. Here. Then we could also use this order ability. Get another Spellweaver in here. And with 3, that's going to be hard for them to get rid of. Technically speaking, we should have Curse Scroll to get Amphibious Assault, and we should have played them with that, because that would have made them more highly boosted. Let's dump the Aretuza Adept, I think. As I was saying before, we don't really want to have units in hand. We want to use all of our tutors to play 2 units per turn that way. Whereas we're only getting 1 per turn if we play a unit directly from hand. They definitely have damage, though. And that's why I was saying that Amphibious Assault, technically speaking, would have been preferable. We're going to go with leader building charges as well to get rid of our last Spellweaver. It's unfortunate. Again, it means we might have been able to keep 1 or 2 on the board if we had gone through Amphibious Assault, because it would have given these guys a bigger boost. But we have 3 in our graveyard, which is not a bad thing, because actually, if we are to use Pavetta in a subsequent round, we can move all Spellweavers from our graveyard back into our deck, and then that means with all of our echoed copies of Amphibious Assault and Oneiromancy, we can play limitless, seemingly, Spellweavers in round 2 or round 3, and that's really hard for our opponents to handle. But the more we get in round 1, the more we can bring back in round 2 or round 3. So let's go for, I think, probably Triss now, and see if we can get some through a Runeword here. Looking for the Spellweavers, not getting any. Go ban Ard Student here because our backup plan is to use Alumni. There's a Spellweaver. Of course, the earlier we get them, the better, because that means that's more time to gain charges from every mage and every spell that we play, and we've already done a whole bunch of that. So a little bit of a missed opportunity there, but as long as we have 1 that stays on the board, then we can do things like reinforcements to create additional copies. Go into hand boosting with the Hawker Smuggler. A little bit surprised to see that. It didn't seem as though they were trying to be much of a hand boosting deck, and then it's going to brick the Vernoseal's Commando as well, so it's a little bit of odds and ends there. Now let's go reinforcements, though. As this gives us additional Spellweavers, and now we have 3 in this round, and 3 in our graveyard, 6 total, that we can bring back with a Pavetta play in round 2 or round 3, and so that is useful. And with our damage, I'm thinking we're probably looking to get rid of their hand boosting whenever we can, right? We could use a leader building charge on one of these Spellweavers to get 1 more damage out of them and immediately take out the Smuggler. I don't think it's worth it that much. It arguably could even be worth using a Hen Gaidth Sword, in which case we didn't need to use any of the damage on this at all. So we do want to make a point of using this in round 1, otherwise it's probably not going to have time to get the echoed copy and have us play that unit in round 2 or round 3. Okay, now they're moving our row-locked units, yes, but this will still gain power over time. Okay, trying to go after our Spellweavers this way, though. Okay, I see. So they're trying to get rid of our cards, yes, but you'll notice we still have a pretty large lead here, fortunately. This won't be able to use its order ability anymore, but it will still continue to build its order ability power. Even if it can't be applied, that still means it will make our future Alumni play more effective, which is important because we've reached 4, which is the number we're looking for on the boost side of things, but we want this to get up to 4 as well. That way, Alumni gets up to the point where it is getting Zeal. So now, at this point, we would like to play Amphibious Assault to get all the echoed copies. So I think we do that. And I think either that or we play a Gerhart and we hope that we get enough time to get this up to 6 power to get another Runeword. It is a strong card that we could consider saving for round 3, though, so maybe we do, given our lead. Just go for Aretuza Adept here, because we do have a lot of Patience units on the board at the moment. So these will get pretty highly boosted. And just at least do that, and I should right-click as quickly as possible, otherwise if we have this active at the end of our turn, it will use any remaining charges on a random target, and we did happen to hit our own unit there, so that's why I was right-clicking, but you need to make sure that you do that as soon as possible, and don't have this active on the end of your turn. That's why this deck is almost impossible to commentate over, because there's so much clicking. But, okay. Ooh, they got rid of Ard Student, didn't they? At 2. Yeah, so no Zeal, that means for, unfortunately, for our Alumni. We could use one of these Aretuza Students, and then go Practice Makes Perfect, could even use both of them, and then go Practice Makes Perfect to get other mages out from our deck. It would likely mean Alumni. It could be original Aretuza Students, or Ard Students. I mean, we'd probably prefer that. But, yeah, I think we do that. Apply the boost, but then we're going to swap you out, and we would love to have enough time for those guys to do their thing. But unfortunately, I don't think that's going to be the case. And now that we have done all that, we're probably not going to have time for this. They are likely to pass on this turn, because I don't think they are going to like their chances here to catch us, given the deficit they're looking at. But, I mean, if they play, then again, they do still have their Feigned Death out here that has not yet triggered all of its rounds. It's not a bad target for Hen Gaidth Sword, at least the first copy of it. Second copy, not a great option. It'd probably end up being Vernaseal's Commando. But, I suppose it does give us some carryover value. I don't think they're able to catch us here on their next play anyway, so you could make a strong case for passing, but I do want to at least give us the chance to set up Hen Gaidth Sword to show you what it's all about, because it is a little tricky to make it work, but I do like the little Sorceress play here. And then the second one, as I said, the Vernaseal's Commando is definitely not as big of a deal. We're going to deliberately leave these unspent, because that'll boost up the Aretuza Adepts even after we pass, and we really want this to get up to 4 if we can. That's kind of unlikely. Yeah, they pass. I expected them to pass in their previous turn, to be honest with you. This will at least be up to 3, but 4 is the key number to set up the Zeal on the Alumni. Probably going to play the Alumni in the range row anyway, because I think we got the Aretuza Students in the previous attempt up to about 6 power. But there we go. Fairly convincing round 1 win there, even with not as many Spellweavers staying on the board as we would have liked. Okay, so we did play one more card than our opponent, so we're probably dry passing here, although you could make a case that we have enough power here to push in round 2. Notably, you'll see we have Vernaseal's Commando on this Hen Gaidth Sword, and this one will create a Sorcerer's Noble opponent. This one is definitely more interesting to us, and actually, combining that with our leader ability, no, this only works on Northern Realms cards, right? Okay, otherwise that'd be amazing. We should probably swap out, or we might even want to get rid of the one that has Vernaseal's Commando, because I'm not terribly enthused about that one, but let's make sure we get the echoed copy of Amphibious Assault. Probably swap you out as well for an echoed copy of Oneiro. And so that's what we're going to do, is we're going to use all these echoed copies of the tutor cards to play a whole bunch of the Spellweavers from our deck, but there are no Spellweavers in your deck, Lids. How are you going to do that? Simple. Use one of them to get Pavetta. Use Pavetta to shuffle all of our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Spellweavers back into our deck and play them all in round 3. So we could do that now in round 2, but I don't think we will, given our card deficit here. We'll keep it simple at this point, and we'll dry pass. Pyrotechnician is just a throwaway for them. Okay, and we draw into an Alumni here. Let's just count tutors for a second, because we'll need 1 to get Pavetta. And so, well, we have a total of 4. Each one will play twice. That means we can tutor 8 units from our deck, or 8 cards in total from our deck. We have 6 of the Spellweavers, so that's going to count for most of our tutoring capability. We do need to get Pavetta for one of them, so that's 7 tutored cards. That means we can tutor 1 more thing out from our deck. And as things stand, that would ideally be our other alumni. So this might actually be the right balance. Might be able to do better than Megascope. There is Pavetta. Ooh, okay. That means we can tutor enough to get all of the Spellweavers, and we don't have anything that we absolutely need to use on the last Oneiro, for example. That could turn into one Oneiro into a Runeword and another Oneiro into a second Runeword. That's probably what we'd like at the very end, to give a bunch of charges to all of our Spellweavers. But first and foremost, it is Pavetta. I mean, you could even make a case for immediately going to Hen Gaidth Sword and destroying this Soccer Smuggler and getting a Sorceress down quickly, but this is a mage, for what it's worth. And so that is actually very relevant for our Spellweavers, so I think we still go Pavetta first. And get all these guys back. Okay, Dwarf Berserker, it's gonna hit Pavetta with a little bit of damage, not too concerned about that. She's already done her thing. So, at this point, now we want to get our Spellweavers out as quickly as possible. And they are here in the deck now. So what we should do is we should lead off with Amphibious Assault. That'll give them a bit of a boost, so they're up to 8 power, which makes them harder to get rid of. And also, Amphibious Assault is a Warfare rather than a spell card, unlike Oneiro. And Oneiro, because it's a spell, gives additional procs to those mages, those Spellweavers. So we want to get the Spellweavers out here first, and then if we use Oneiro to get the second round, that's actually, in total, more charges for the Spellweavers, if that makes any sense. So, if we play you guys, then you could make the case for leader ability on these, and maybe that means it's not quite enough damage, but, I mean, yeah, in truth, it wasn't really necessary. But you can take out the Hawker Smuggler, or at least damage the Hawker Smuggler a little more quickly. Okay, Elven Seer. Gonna be the target of future boostage from special cards in all likelihood. Okay. We have some solid targets for our damage. And might that even warrant not you? You, to get the Sorceress down as well. Technically, this is playing a mage, so it is a card that we kind of like to wait to use until we have as many Spellweavers on the board as possible, because then we're giving a charge to more Spellweavers. But given how it also gives us a quick and easy way to remove these guys, it might still be worth going in what is technically not the optimal order for maximum Spellweaver charges, but it is perhaps optimal for shutting these guys down. Then again, yeah, I think we do. Make sure we do this one. Or we could, you know what? We'll do this one. One that gives us the Vernaseal's Commando, because we don't care as much about that. Still gives us the removal. We're leaving the Hawker Smuggler for one more turn, but I think we'll be fine with a slightly more hand boosting, and that way we get a little bit of the best of both worlds. We get the removal, and we can still save the Hen Gaidth Sword that has the more useful card for later on. So yeah, they're actually doing a fair bit of hand boosting now. Another one of these Sylvathana Sorceresses. So we can remove this too, and create a Sylvathana Sorceress in the process. And that might be what we look to do right here, right now. Fortunately, the damage goes on this Commando, which is not all that useful for us. So I think we probably do go this route. It's enough damage. And the charges that we gain here will be just enough. After removing these guys, we can get rid of the hand boosting. You've lost your armor, so you're not really doing much of anything anymore. So we're probably going to keep this charge. Then we're going to go Amphibious Assault into our other Spellweavers. Then we're going to go Oneiro into our other Spellweavers. Then we're going to go Oneiro into our Alumni, is probably the order of operations, or get a Ard Student down there at some point as well. Gerhart, probably the finisher. Okay. So this is not boosted, so it's not really a threat. This we would like to get rid of. Just need 3 damage to do that, and I think we will have that. Especially if we have this Scoia'tael special card, which might give us additional damage as well. But let's go Amphibious Assault next for additional Spellweavers. Play you. And play you. And now we have the damage to take care of you. Question is, are we going to want to do anything with this sorceress on this turn, or do we perhaps wait? Because we don't have an immediate need for it. I mean, maybe we could get a boost on one of these guys. We could even use a leader ability charge. Obviously, we're not getting Zeal, but giving you a little bit of a boost does open up a few more possibilities in terms of what we could get. Maybe even one of those... Oh, yeah. Actually, we should wait to do this on a turn where we're going to play a unit from our hand. Okay, Philiphandrel is a card that they were hand boosting, or at least one of them. Shaping Nature, solid choice. For a point slam, and it does get this to be boosted up. So this is now an engine. And what we are probably looking to do here is go Oneiro into our last round of Spellweavers. So these ones, less power, therefore they are a little more vulnerable. But we deliberately went for Oneiro last. We did Amphibious Assault first to get additional charges on all these Spellweavers. They realize there is no way they can handle all of that damage that we just put up on the board, so they forfeit. Alright, so going up against Nilfgaard here. And we'll go first. Okay, so whenever you're going up against Nilfgaard in this event, you have to be a little wary of them potentially being a mill deck, because that is quite common in this event, and your strategy against mill is probably different than your strategy against normal Nilfgaard. I think it's a little unusual for Enslaved to do that, though, but I suppose it's still a possibility. Normally, we would like our tutors like Amphibious Assault, but against mill, less so. We probably want to make sure that we have Pavetta in hand, just in case it is mill. So let's actually get rid of... Normally, we would put Spellweavers back to our deck and use our tutors to summon them out. Against mill, again, that's a little bit of an issue, but... Or at least could be. Okay, Hen Gaidth Sword. Aretuza Student. Swapping out to get 2 Alumni. Also cards we probably would like to save. Notably, what we're missing here, if it's not going to be mill we're going against, would be Oneiro and, as I said, Pavetta, to get the Spellweavers that we create in round 1 from our graveyard at the end of the round back into our deck, so we can play them again in round 2 or round 3. So we don't really have a great sense as to, are they mill or they're not mill? Again, with Enslave, I feel like it's a little less common as, say, something like Imposter or maybe Double Cross might be the most common. So might be able to get away with it for that reason. Why don't we start with an Aretuza Adept? A low-risk play, it's, you know, if they try to do something to it, it's no big deal, but it's mostly just to see what are they going to do here. Because if it's Kingslayer, then we know it's mill. Ducal Guard. Is it normal Assimilate? It might be. There are usually some Assimilate cards, a few, put into even mill decks. But maybe we do proceed with those Spellweavers now? Question mark. So go Amphibious Assault into the Spellweavers. Gets them up to 8 power, so they're a little bit harder for our opponent to get rid of. Usually you'd like to get them out as quickly as possible to get as many charges on them as possible, so that every time you play a spell or other mages and spells, you're going to get the charges from that too. Okay, Assassination is not enough by itself to get rid of one, or at least not without the second copy. Notably, they, interestingly, don't go for the same one. So they could have removed one of them if they went with both copies there. So that's a little bit odd that they didn't do that. So we could boost them up with Inspired Zeal. We're concerned about them going down. I mean, that's maybe not the biggest of deals at this point, because what we'd like to do at this stage is go Megascope, because with that, we can create additional copies, and this isn't a spell card, isn't a mage, we don't even play this mage, so it's a way in which we create additional Spellweavers without proccing additional Spellweaver charges, so you want to do that early, because ideally you do the spells and the mages when you have more Spellweavers on the board, because that would equate to getting more charges on more Spellweavers. Okay, Mastercrafted Spear is just enough to remove well with the second round. Both Spellweavers, but as I said, we are still going to get a Spellweaver back. So it's not the absolute end of the world. We would have, of course, liked to have had them stick around, but there's a lot of removal in this event. Runeword is not a guaranteed source of Spellweavers, but it's a possibility it is a spell, and it's a spell that gives us mages guaranteed as well, so this is a perfect example of a card that would give us a whole lot of Spellweaver charges, so that's why I didn't start with this one. But we might be looking at needing to go that route now. We probably will, unless we Oneiro and use that to get Chapter Wizards, which may or may not be something we end up doing soon. Yeah, not really what we're looking for here, unfortunately. We are still going to get that other Spellweaver, remember. And it's kind of early for Alumni. But I guess we will play one of them here. And it will power up over time as this Ard Student powers up. Burning Joust, I mean, it's good for getting rid of the shields as well. I'm curious which one they go for here. Yeah, they do try to get rid of the shield, or the shield makes them think that that's greater value, when the Spellweaver is, in fact, the thing that we probably prefer to have. So that actually works kind of well for us. Now, probably looking for either Runeword number 2 or Triss Telekinesis to try to get additional Spellweavers. And now that we at least have one Spellweaver on the board, we can build up some more charges through that. So yeah. I think we'll go this route first. Looking for the Spellweavers. That's what we want. And that's what we want too. And there you see just tons of charges. And that's why you ideally use those cards, the ones that give the most charges, when you already have a bunch of Spellweavers on the board. Okay, Menno into Attorney Joust, which this will be their second and final copy of it. They have done a good job getting rid of those Spellweavers. It slowed us down considerably in round 1, but bear in mind, we currently have 1, 2, 3, 4 Spellweavers in our graveyard, and so this one as well, which will go into our graveyard at the end of the round. If we get Pavetta in round 2 or round 3 to bring all of those Spellweavers from our graveyard back into our deck, suddenly we can use a bunch of tutors to play them all from our deck, and it's very effective in that case. So I think what we're going for here is probably Triss, looking for Runeword, looking for more Spellweavers. That is likely the plan. And, yeah, not exactly what we want in this case. I don't even think we're going to go Practice Makes Perfect here. We're just going to see what we get. You probably do have more cards than us. This is true. And... oh. For some reason I thought they still had the, no. I should not have had this clicked, because I was going to randomly choose target. Fortunately, it was Menno. Yeah, I thought they still had the Assimilate unit out there, but we got rid of that before. The Assassination will get rid of this. Oh, well, I guess they could get rid of both these if they'd like. As I said, at this point, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Spellweavers in our graveyard, so we have plenty of ways to get those back. We do very much want to have a target for Hen Gaidth Sword in round 1, otherwise this gets rather tricky for us to use. So that's one thing we want to consider. This is definitely going to be Curse Scroll turn, and with Curse Scroll, I'm thinking we get Oneiro. So let's make that happen. So we want to get those echoed copies of Oneiro. And with it, I think Chapter Wizards, you would ideally play directly from hand, but I think we will play it here. The reason why it's not ideal is because this is not the first special card that we played on this turn, and so that means we will only play one copy of Runeword, and haven't yet built up any Aretuza Adepts, or Aretuza Students, I should say. Yes, we'll go Aretuza Adept as well, though, to go along with it. Oh, that's the wrong order. That one came out first, then this one. I thought that was the Adept, and that was the Student. Obviously, that is not ideal, because we won't be able to use this order ability, because she is row-locked to the range row. However, she will still gain power over time, which means that, even if we can't use this order ability, the Alumni that we plan to play at some point in time, those will still get powered up. This Griffin Witcher Ranger. and the Eternian Mauler, they immediately transfer those over. So we could, and probably should, at least with you, swap you out for a different Patience unit, or at least a different random Bronze Mage from our deck, because, well, I mean, and you were the most recent one that we created. What was the most recent one that we played? I don't even remember anymore. Either way, I think we're swapping you out. It's not exactly what we were looking for, and it is really too early for the Alumni, though, so, I mean, we might swap you out as well and actually get this in the right spot this time, and that means we could create an additional copy. Ideally, this would be of Spellweavers, but at this point, I don't really think we can make that happen, so we might wait to use this order ability and see if the carryover is relevant for round 2. So as things currently stand, at least from a points on the board standpoint, they do need to make up 10 points here. It's certainly possible, but we are still looking for something to use this sword on, and that is a perfect target. And, well, love to maybe poke one of these shielded units, depending on what they get, with the Alumni. Like if it were a Spellweaver, oh, I wish it was a Spellweaver. Then we could poke it with the Alumni to get the shield off, and then destroy it with the sword. Okay, but here's the thing. They do use their leader ability, and in doing so, they do swipe our 6 power and 2 power on the order ability, Aretuza Student. So that's not great for us. This is really just good enough to remove the shield and not much else. Do have our leader ability if we'd like, which is worth, if we want to, a total of, what, 6 points? But Hen Gaidth Sword, 4 if we use it on Triss Telekinesis. Like to get the death blow in both cases, but we're only going to get that if we use this. Break through you as well, that's 8 damage. Gets us to functionally... It drops you down by 8 to 21, that's still not good enough. We spawn something in with Chapter of Wizards, that's still not good enough. So I think we do need to pass here, but that's why we deliberately held on to things like Chapter of Wizards. So we still get some carryover. Okay, so they won uneven, which is not great, but the thing that is so great about this deck is we actually just set ourselves up for a really big round 2 or round 3. Let's get rid of Alumni, because we can play that with all of our tutors here. We would still like to get the chance to play Hen Gaidth Sword. Otherwise, if we play this in round 3, then it doesn't really have the time set up. We'll use one of these tutors to play Pavetta to get our bazillion Spellweavers back into our deck. That's the primary thing we want to do in this round. But I'm curious to see if they push it all. They don't. Okay. So this will be an interesting test then. So that means we will be a card down going into round 3, but we will have all the Spellweaver carryover. It does mean that this is going to be a bricked card. We're going to need to mulligan it in round 3. I mean, it is still 5 damage, but it's not great. Even if it's a special card, we play it twice. We can probably still do better than that. So either way, we'll go Oneiro here. Or actually, I guess there's no real point in not at least doing that, but Aretuza Student, it will get up to 2 power on the boost, which might even be better than we already have on the setup for Alumni. It will be. So the big thing is we Oneiro into primarily Pavetta. And this is so we can get all you guys back into the deck. And then second round, we might just go with a throwaway of some variety here and maybe get a Ard Student down into the melee row. It will make Practice Makes Perfect a little bit stronger, and by the end of this turn, it'll make both of these up to 2, which means Alumni still certainly not the setup that we want for that, or at least not powerful enough to be that big of a factor, but it makes it slightly stronger. Okay, so now the thing is, we draw into one of those Spellweavers, but we still have a bunch of echoed copies of tutors, so we can play a total of 8 of those Spellweavers from our deck. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 1 in hand. 1, 2, 3, 4 in our deck right now. We can use an Oneiro to get Gerhart as well, and maybe an Alumni. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We still have enough tutors to get 2 more cards from our deck. I think reinforcements we'd like to get, and we don't need you in hand, we've now just determined. Okay, so yeah, getting special cards in our hand is generally preferable, because if you tutor a special card, it's usually not going to be the first special card that you play, so you're not going to play it twice. So, oh, well, we wanted to... okay, I mean, it's still 5 damage. Triggering twice, so it's something, but as I said, getting rid of this might have been worth doing. But let us begin with, I think, Amphibious Assault into the Spellweavers. Because you want to play them early to give them as much time as possible to build up those charges. Amphibious Assault gives them a little more of a boost, so they're harder to get rid of. Might have wanted to put them next to each other so that any potential assassination attempts would be less effective, although I think we've seen them play both of their original copies of Assassination from their deck. And once again, we also are trying to start with Amphibious Assault because that is going to... It's not a spell. Okay, Fire Scorpion. We're going to take that out. It's almost like the Nilfgaardian equivalent to what we're doing here. But if we go Amphibious Assault here, we get 2 more of these guys out here. They're bigger than the Scorpions that they're playing, and therefore it's going to be harder for them to take them out. And now that we have gotten these guys, we can get the next, I think, 5th and final one with Oneiro, or maybe even Megascope first. Technically speaking, that is preferable, because that means we can get 1 more of these Spellweavers out before we start getting all the charges from double Oneiroing. Ooh, Treason is a good play. Technically speaking, if we put this in the middle of some of these guys, it might have been helpful, but still, we avoided the dreaded getting rid of, or losing 2 Spellweavers per Treason, which would have been really bad. But we will still get 1 more here, and what we could do is we do have a Reinforcements. This is a good example of a special card that we'd like to have directly in hand rather than tutoring it out from our deck, because we'll only get to play 1 round of it. It does still mean 1 additional Spellweaver, but obviously we'd like more than that. So I think in that case, what we'll go for here is... We don't have anything to damage here. Yeah, I think it's going to be Oneiro. It's going to be another Spellweaver first. Then it's going to be, I think, probably Gerhart. And they realize they just can't handle this. It's too many Spellweavers for them to deal with, and so they forfeit. Alright, so going up against Nilfgaard here. And they'll go first. Okay, so if we're going against Nilfgaard, I think we need to at least be prepared for the possibility that this could be a mill deck, which means we must have Pavetta in hand, ideally, so that she doesn't immediately get banished or put into our graveyard. So we'd also like to have, ideally, our units outside of Pavetta in our deck so we can tutor those, which outside of mill would usually be our go-to setup. But, well, we do have those tutors. We can use a tutor to get Pavetta, but that is not necessarily the most feasible strategies against mill in particular, so we're really hoping this is a normal Nilfgaard deck. Okay, so it's not. And one bonus we do have is we do have Hen Gaidth in hand, and what this does is not only does it deal 5 damage, if we get the death blow, we will banish this Kingslayer, and we kind of like for them to play another Kingslayer before we do that, but just having 1 Kingslayer on the board, they might have been planning to use something like Teleportation to replay it. They're definitely planning to do that. It's just a question of, are they going to do that first, or are they going to play another Kingslayer directly from hand first? So we'd like for them to do the latter, and then we could banish them both and completely shut down subsequent Kingslayers. Or they might go Vigo into a second Kingslayer. I think we take our chances for slightly more time here. And let's go Runeword. No, let's go Chapter of Wizards into Runeword. Get Spellweavers. Ideally, at least. Maybe that temporarily distracts them. We want them to play their second Kingslayer from their starting deck right now, and we will banish them both with Hen Gaidth Sword and potentially shut down their entire deck. That is the dream scenario, but they may go for Teleportation first instead. If they're going on Hero, though... Okay, no, it's other sources of mill. No, we need Pavetta. Do not mess with Pavetta. Okay, there... No. Okay, well, bye-bye Pavetta. but there are their 2 Kingslayers. So we lost one way to shut down Mill, but here is the other. Okay, so hopefully we'll find that that works out for us, as they may still be able to use Vigo to create another one of those Kingslayers or 2, but as you see, those Kingslayers did not go to their graveyard, they were banished, and we can actually replay them in a subsequent round with the echoed copies of the Hen Gaidth Sword, so we can return the favor a little bit here, a little bit of karma, but, I mean, I guess we'll use the damage here. Because they may have been looking to use something like Necromancy, possibly even Renew, to get those guys back and replay them. I mean, they will still have other ways to further mill down our deck, I'm sure, but those were likely the centerpieces. Because Teleportation is probably a dead card now. Xavier, ooh, okay, I mean, well, yes, they're probably going to get rid of the Hen Gaidth Swords, if they can. I mean, it's not a huge deal, we don't really need to mill their deck, but you know, having things like, I mean, echoed copies of Oneiro and Amphibious Assault would normally be nice. Then again, against Mill, less so. So, I think what we're doing here, probably go in, hold on, could go Amphibious Assault into, well, if we get the Spellweavers out, we can't Pavetta to get them back. Yikes. Again, Pavetta was pretty important, that's why we wanted to make sure we had her in hand so that she would not get banished. But I guess we'll go Runeword here. Ideally looking for additional Spellweavers. Ideally additional Spellweavers. Perfect. And then it's not quite enough to get rid of Xavier right off the bat here, unless we were to use you as well. I'd rather not do that. But let's see, are they going for the other Hen Gaidth Sword? Yeah. Get packed. Put the Doomed on Xavier, and just give him a huge boost. Okay, I mean, if you insist. Suppose we're not gonna destroy him all that easily anymore. Now they're gonna steal our, or create a copy of our Gerhart, which is definitely one of our better cards, so that's a card that we perhaps prioritize getting rid of over Xavier, because at this point, don't really care if they banish the rune words from our graveyard, so I think we're going Triss as well. I mean, we could go Megascope into additional Spellweavers is technically the best way to maximize the effectiveness of the Spellweavers, but I'm wary of letting this Gerhart sit around. So, and this does not immediately give any procs to the Spellweavers, so even if it's technically long-term not quite as effective, I think this is still the answer. And we're given the Doomed. We're given the Doomed 2. Rather, well, pack, which gives Doomed. I think it's on you. And probably on you as well. And then we can go pretty crazy here. Mostly just want to make sure that we get rid of you. And then after that, sure. Gonna see if we can save the Ard Student damage, because we want to at least get up to 4, so that our Alumni now have, at least from the damage perspective, the threshold they need to get Zeal. We, of course, have not yet played, any of the Aretuza students. Those would be the boosting setup for the Alumni, and we do need to get both of those if we're looking for the Zeal. So, they stole with Yenvo our Triss, which made sense. Our Aretuza Adept, I'm not sure that made a ton of sense, but the thing that I'm worried about now is tutoring further cards into our deck when we don't have great ways to make sure we still have cards to play in round 3 without Pavetta. You don't talk. You're playing Mill. No talk from you. Megascope on Cintrian Spellweaver would have been long-term the best strategy to get more Spellweavers. We might want to save that for a subsequent round when we get the Spellweavers out from our deck. But then what are we trying to do here in that case? I mean, we have 2 Megascopes. Just do it. They went first as well. So the pressure's on them to catch us here. They'll continue to banish with Xavier. Okay, well, that's unfortunate, but this would be another card that we would consider if they didn't have the shields, using our Hen Gaidth Sword on if they had, for example, stolen these guys, they don't have the shields, and we didn't have reason to shut down their milling strategies as well. But, doesn't work because we've already used our sword, and obviously they have shields, so the death blow is not going to trigger here. But on this occasion, we might need to go Amphibious Assault, and we might want to start getting those Aretuza students down to try to set up Alumni, or at least go 1 and 1, maybe. Would have been nice if we could have waited around a little bit longer, so we could have gotten the additional Cintrian Spellweaver down here to get the charges from the mages coming in, but as we see, at least from a point slam standpoint, it was sufficient, so that's good. Teleportation, we knew they had it. We denied them the ability to play it the way they wanted to play it. They don't even get the charges, at least not initially, because the one that was on the board when they played this was locked. So this one will have a few charges now, but could destroy it, and that is tempting. It is quite tempting indeed. Don't have enough damage to destroy the second one, but also they haven't caught us. We have an 11-point advantage, and they've played one more card than us. Normally, against Mill, you would absolutely need to win round 1, whatever the cost. But given how we did shut down some of their mill, I do wonder if we might be able to get away with this here. Because that would, under normal circumstances, have been a misplay from them. I think we settle. We are going to get a little more points per turn on this Aretuza Adept, and if it takes them more turns to catch us, this Aretuza Student will get stronger as well, and if this gets up to 4, then our Alumni have Zeal. Squirrel is not really worth much in the way of points here. So that's the thing about Mill, is they don't have a lot of points. And they haven't caught us yet, which means, yes, this, unless they destroy it on their next turn, is going to get up to 4. So the Spores, sure, that will mean they will catch us here. But not after going 3 cards down, and that's, I mean, even if they make it so we can't draw into every card in round 3, I think that's still looking decent for us. And we do still have some ways to get those Cintrian Spellweavers, because reinforcements will create additional copies of a Spellweaver, and since we still have the original 2 from our deck, we can get those with Oneiromancy. We can create additional copies with reinforcements, we can create additional copies with Megascope, so we have some means to make that happen. It's not amazing at this point, but it's something. And we're probably looking for a throwaway. I would imagine at this point, they're going to drive past in this round. Normally, Mill would play round 2, try to mill as many cards as possible, mill as many cards in round 2 as well, and make it so we can't draw into our full set of cards in round 3, but I think given the card disadvantage they're in here, and given how we shut down their mill early in round 1, I think they will drive past, but I can't really be certain. Okay, they will. So yeah, I think this Aretuza Student is our throwaway here, especially because we have reached the 4 in each row, or the 4 melee damage, 4 range damage threshold for Alumni to get Zeal. It's much better from a melee row standpoint for the damage, but point is, there isn't any ulterior motive, any additional objective we're trying to reach by playing the Aretuza Student early. Already met that threshold, so that's a good throwaway. And so we draw into one of the Spellweavers here. Teleportation, which could be a way to replay one of our mages to get additional charges, and also ideally this would be on an Alumni, because that way we can, since we have Zeal, we can use the Alumni's order ability as soon as we play it, and then use Teleportation to replay the Alumni, and get another round of that leader ability, or not leader ability, but the order ability out there. We can get 2 units tutored with Oneiromancy. That means 1 Spellweaver, 1 Alumni. I guess that's probably what we'll go for here. This might still want Practice Makes Perfect, though, because on the fence here. I guess we did already have one in hand, but that's, again, something we can use on Alumni to play it multiple times and get multiple order abilities out of it. So, okay. The question is, technically speaking, Cintrian Spellweaver first is ideal, but it is a little bit vulnerable if we just play it out there with nothing else on the board. We would like to play it first so we get additional charges from all the other mages and spell cards that we're going to end up playing. I think we take that risk because we do still have one more in our deck that we can tutor out if needed. And we do have leader ability charges. We could... tell you what we could do. We'll play it. I'm debating whether we want to go double leader ability to give it a few boosts, but I think if they have damage to remove it, they're going to have enough to get rid of it either way, regardless of whether we give it the additional boost from 1 or 2. Or they'll poison it. So, yeah, Cadaver would have gotten rid of it for sure, even if we had used leader ability charges and we just would have wasted those in that case. So... not sure how much value they're realistically going to be able to get out of these Spellweavers, because I don't think they're going to have the same quantity of mages or spells that we have. But it does now make it trickier when it comes to the setup, because now we very much need this Spellweaver to survive long enough to at least set up the reinforcements, set up the Megascope, and... so for that reason, I think we ease into it a little bit. It's not, maximum pointage-wise, it's not quite as good, but I think we need to play it a little bit safe here. And if they have more damage, force them to use it on Gerhart. If he does last until he's up to 6 on that order ability, then he can get Runeword, which can give us potentially additional Spellweavers as well. So that's one way we could continue to benefit from it, and might alternatively be able to get some boosts out of this, which would mean we could make that Spellweaver more capable of taking hits, but we'll see what they're about to do with this Oneiro. I imagine they have Vilgefortz, so they might play here, or they're going to lock. Okay. So yeah, he was bait. He's an expensive bait, but he's actually less important than the Spellweaver is, so that's why I played him there, and he could have supported the Spellweaver if he had remained unlocked and unremoved. Okay. So we can reset his power. I'm not sure that really matters at this point. But, question remains. How much damage do they have remaining? And lock remaining. I mean, technically, if they locked the Spellweaver, it wouldn't have been a huge deal, because we would have still been able to create additional copies of it. But the damage from those Spellweavers would have been problematic. So, we do have card advantage, so for what it's worth, we can be fairly patient for that reason as well, but most of these things are set up. I think we'll go Aretuza Adept. Again, it's largely bait. Obviously, this is cheaper bait, but it's also easier bait for them to remove, so I think they're less likely to take it. This was, I think, very effective at targeting the, or getting them to use their damage and their control. But after this, we pretty much need to play Spellweavers. I guess we could. Go for it. No, don't do that. Okay. It actually is workable. I have no idea what they drew into. It's concerning. As I said, Vilgefortz, the base Vilgefortz, the one that moves a card from the board onto, or into our graveyard and then summons another thing out from our deck. That's maybe the biggest threat here to remove something that we play. But, then again, if any of these get summoned out, I mean, this in the melee row is usable. If it's in the range row, obviously it isn't. This we'd like to have in the melee row, but if it goes in the range row, it is still usable. It doesn't matter where this ends up. So, I think we're just going to play another throwaway here, because they gave us another throwaway, and it does technically set this up slightly. So we're just trying to bait out whatever additional control they might have, because especially after that Mata play, I imagine they were trying to set up something else. They did steal something, right? With Yenvo? I forget what it was, though. But I don't think we've seen that yet. Oneiro. Duchess's Informants. Oh, does mean they can get additional charges on those Spellweavers. Okay. But that's why we waited. Okay, that, I don't like this, though. I don't like this mill. Don't like this mill. Okay, that was the most disposable card. So we lucked out there. We did get them to use their damaging charges from these Spellweavers, which again is what we're trying to force them into doing. They will get a little bit of damage from this Ard Student. I'm not sure if they're going to have enough on that for that to be all that relevant. So at this point... Wait, what happened to our... Okay, it turned black. I was like, what happened to our Alumni? We had that too, right? We could technically practice makes perfect on this Aretuza Adept before it gets destroyed. There is something to be said for that, especially since we do have several practice makes perfects. Would give us a little bit of a boost on whatever we play. I think we try it. It's going to replay the same card. Honestly, we'll take it, but we're going to have to do it again. And this time, it is the Spellweaver. Okay, but the Spellweaver is at 9 power, which is more difficult to remove, but if they have Vilgefortz, it's not going to matter. They're still going to be able to remove it. If they do that, then what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the Alumni instead. That's what we're building around in that case. So the boosts help. Oh, yep, they're going to get more charges here. But not enough to destroy it, and that is key. Because that means that now we can create additional ones of them with reinforcements, or do we prefer the Alumni after all? I think we might still be looking at Spellweavers here. Technically, Megascope first is slightly more efficient. How much damage is this? This is 2. We're going to have 1 damage here. So that's 3. You're still safe unless they have additional sources of damage. I think, given how we shortchanged our damage a little bit, we delayed the Spellweaver. Let's go the long-term route here with Megascope. And see if we can get rid of you. Again, could leader ability, but I think we're more likely going to want to do that on Spellweavers that get spawned in or created copies of with reinforcements. Because now that we at least had this one safely make it onto the board, okay, it's going to get heat waved. Oh, very clever, okay. Double heat wave actually gets rid of our other way to spawn in a Spellweaver. The only possible way they could have prevented us from getting that second one in. But now that means we are looking at possibly these two deliberately with Oneiro, and then that way we are not initially showing our Alumni. Obviously, it's worth the most points, yes, but given how this is very clearly very much a control deck, we are trying to play it as safely as possible. So I think we don't show this just yet. I think we do this. And I think we do this. And it also means that practice makes perfect is a little bit stronger here. You boosted up or powered up at all? Not really. Okay, that's... The shield is going to be annoying, actually, because our value from those Alumni is coming from the damage, primarily. So shielding their biggest units is not really what we want to see them do. Although it's not a spell card, thankfully. Okay, so now what we are looking for is probably deal the damage with Ard Student, and then use Practice Makes Perfect to swap in the Alumni. And after that, we're going to swap in you and get the Alumni, and we're going to get another copy of Practice Makes Perfect. We're going to use that probably on this Aretuza Adept. It is actually possible, though, that we get the same card back, in which case we will... I guess we'll swap you. Here is Alumni. Okay, so this will gain Zeal. And so we will use this with 9 damage. That's why the shield was significant. Let's get rid of you. So this is the key card that does ideally kind of need to stick around. Not sure what this last one is. Again, haven't seen Vilgefortz yet. I was kind of expecting them to have that, so I'm wary of that potentiality. No, it's Imperial Diviner, which is actually not a huge deal. It is technically a mage. But okay, so now we are looking at probably reinforcements on Alumni, and then replaying some Alumni to get their orders again. problem remains. The shields limit our damage a bit. We might poke one of these shields with Ard Student so we can get the full value out of the Alumni damage. But let's go reinforcements first, I think. And then another one. And then... I mean, we could just go for the biggest unshielded enemies first. But I guess we do that. And they realize it's more than enough damage for us to catch them, and so we beat the mill deck. So there's a look at a Northern Realms mage deck for the new dual casting seasonal events. If you liked the video, then make sure to hit the like and subscribe button and leave a comment down below to let me know which other cards, archetypes, and factions you'd like us to experiment with next. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you next time.